The lights are on. Read that again. Not off, not dark, not the obvious dramatic darkness of a place that has been abandoned and locked and left to whatever process time applies to things that human beings build and then stop caring about. The lights are on. The air conditioning is running. The escalators are moving. The specific, patient, mechanical movement of escalators that were built for the footfall of thousands of people per hour and are currently carrying nobody. The music is playing. The curated, carefully selected retail soundtrack that was chosen by a brand consultant to make customers feel the specific emotional state that converts browsing into purchasing is playing to empty corridors. The lights are on, the mall is open, and nobody is there. This is not one mall, so this is not an outlier. The single failed development in an otherwise thriving retail landscape, the exception that proves the rule, the cautionary tale that the successful malls point to as evidence of what happens when you get the location wrong, or the tenant mix wrong, or the anchor wrong. This is a pattern, a systematic, citywide, mathematically consistent pattern of retail space built for a consumer population that does not exist at the density required to fill it. Of malls that were developed on projections of population growth that has not materialized. Of flagship stores that signed leases on the assumption of foot traffic that has not arrived. Of food courts that were designed for the capacity of a functioning city and are operating at the capacity of a neighborhood. Dubai has more retail space per capita than any city on Earth. Not more than New York, more than Tokyo, more than any city in the world that has the per capita income to justify what Dubai has built. And Dubai's per capita retail spending is declining because the capita is leaving, because the 3 million who left took their spending with them, because the lights are on and the escalators are moving and the music is playing. And the ratio of retail space to actual human beings who are inside the retail space spending money is the most unfavorable ratio in the history of retail development. This is the story of Dubai's ghost malls and what they tell us about a city that built for a future that has not arrived. The retail overcapacity of Dubai did not happen by accident. It happened by the same mechanism that produced every other form of overcapacity in the emirate. The specific combination of pre-sale financing, investor-buyer concentration, government ambition, and the absence of the regulatory mechanisms that would have prevented supply from so dramatically exceeding demand. The logic that built the malls began with the Dubai Mall. The Dubai Mall opened in 2008 at a scale that the retail industry globally had never seen. 5.9 million square feet, 1,200 retailers, the largest mall on Earth by total area. The Dubai Mall was not primarily a retail project. It was, like everything Dubai built in that era, primarily a statement. A statement that Dubai could build the world's largest of anything and fill it and make it work. The statement worked. The Dubai Mall worked. In its first years of operation, the Dubai Mall exceeded its own projections for visitor numbers. The 105 million annual visits that Emaar reported were real. Real footfall through the doors, real revenue flowing to the retailers, real commercial success that justified the investment and produced the returns that the development model required. The Dubai Mall's success sent a signal to every developer in the emirate. The signal was, retail works in Dubai. The consumers are there. Build more. They built more. The problem with the signal was that it was specific to the Dubai Mall in a way that the developers who read it did not sufficiently appreciate. The Dubai Mall worked because it was the Dubai Mall, because it had the Burj Khalifa adjacent to it, because it had the Dubai fountain at its feet, because it had the aquarium and the ice rink and the dinosaur skeleton and the waterfall, and the specific combination of spectacle and retail that produced visitor numbers that were as much about the attraction as about the shopping. The developer who read the Dubai Mall's success as evidence that retail works in Dubai and then built a mall in a location without the Burj Khalifa and without the fountain and without the attraction was reading the signal incorrectly. They were building a mall sized for the Dubai Mall's footfall in a location that would generate a fraction of the Dubai Mall's footfall. 17 malls of significant scale have opened in Dubai in the 15 years following the Dubai Mall's launch. Not all of them. not counting the community retail centers and the strip malls and the retail components of mixed-use developments that add supply without announcing themselves as malls. The standalone destination malls, 17 of them. In a city whose population, even at its peak of 4.1 million, could not sustain 17 destination malls simultaneously at the occupancy levels that make retail development financially viable. 7 of those 17 malls are operating at occupancy rates that the retail industry classifies as distressed territory. Not low, not underperforming. Distress, the level at which the vacancy is visible from the entrance. Là, where you walk in and see the closed storefronts with the brown paper in the windows, and the toilet signs and the cleaning staff moving through corridors that have nothing to clean except the floors that no customer's walking on. The lights are on in all of them. There are malls in Dubai that have been open for a decade and have never operated at the occupancy level that their development performers projected in year 1. This is not a secret within the retail industry. Every leasing agent who works the Dubai market, every retail consultant who advises brands on their Gulf expansion, every anchor tenant that has negotiated a lease in a Dubai secondary mall in the past 5 years knows the number. They know which malls work and which malls are going through the motions of working. The Deira City Center, one of Dubai's oldest malls. Though opened in 1995, it was the template for what came after. When Deira City Center opened, it was the destination, the place that Dubai's then modest population went to shop. Over the following 3 decades, as the city's center of gravity moved south and west toward downtown and the marina and the Palm, Deira City Center's position deteriorated. The population it was built to serve moved away. The footfall that justified its tenant mix followed the population. The anchor tenants that had made it a destination renegotiated their leases at rates that reflected the reality rather than the projection, and in some cases did not renegotiate at all. The Ibn Battuta Mall, named for the medieval Islamic explorer, themed around the 6 civilizations he visited, built in the new Dubai area near Jebel Ali in 2005. So the concept was genuine. 6 courts designed to evoke China, India, Persia, Egypt, Tunisia, and Andalusia, each with the specific architectural language of the civilization it represented. The concept was also the problem. A themed mall is a destination for the first visit, for the second, perhaps the third. It is not a destination for the weekly grocery run or the after-school pickup, or the Tuesday evening dinner that constitutes the commercial reality of a functioning neighborhood mall. The Ibn Battuta Mall has visitors. It has tenants. It is not closed. But walk its themed courts on a weekday afternoon and count the people in each court and compare that count to the retail square footage that each court contains, and you will have the ratio that tells the financial story. A ratio that is significantly below the ratio required to sustain the rents that the development's debt service requires. A ratio that has been below that level for years, and that February 28th made lower. The Mirdif City Center, the Dragon Mart, the Mercado Mall, the Times Square Center. Each of them has its own version of the same story. A development that was built on projections that made sense in the context of the Dubai growth narrative of the year it was built, and that has spent its operational life falling short of those projections by amounts that range from uncomfortable to existential. The comfortable shortfalls are managed. The rents are renegotiated. The tenant mix is adjusted. The marketing events are intensified. The parking validation is extended. The food court is expanded because food court anchors produce the footfall that the non-food retail cannot generate on its own. The management does what retail management does when the fundamentals are weak. It buys time and hopes the market improves. The existential shortfalls are not managed. They are endured. The anchor tenant that leaves is replaced by a fitness center because fitness centers will take the space at the rent level that the anchor's departure requires. Because fitness centers are expanding in Dubai in inverse proportion to the decline of the retail sector they are displacing. The fitness center replaces the anchor. The remaining tenants watch the anchor being replaced by a fitness center and make their own calculations about the trajectory of the mall they chose to be in. Retail is the most demographically sensitive commercial sector in any urban economy. More sensitive than office, more sensitive than residential, more sensitive than hospitality. Because retail is purchased by individuals and households making daily, weekly, monthly spending decisions that respond immediately to changes in their financial confidence, their presence in the city, and their assessment of the future. 3 million people left Dubai in the 12 months following February 28, 2026. 3 million people who were spending money in Dubai's retail sector, in its grocery stores and its restaurants and its fashion retailers and its electronic stores and its furniture showrooms and its beauty salons, stopped spending that money in Dubai's retail sector. They did not stop spending. They are spending in Singapore and in Lisbon and in London and wherever the calculation sent them. But they are not spending in Dubai, and the retail infrastructure of Dubai was built for their spending. The spending removal was not uniform across the retail sector. It was concentrated at the top of the income distribution in a way that produced disproportionate damage to the premium retail segment, the luxury goods sector, the high-end dining, the premium grocery that the wealthy consume at rates that make them the marginal customer in retail economics. The marginal customer in retail economics is not the median customer. The marginal customer is the customer whose spending makes the difference between a retail environment that is viable and one that is not. A grocery store that loses 30% of its customers loses more than 30% of its revenue if the 30% it lost were the highest spending 30%. A luxury mall that loses 20% of its visitors loses more than 20% of its sales if the 20% it lost were the segment whose per-visit spend was 3 times the average. The Dubai retail sector that was built for the spending of 4.1 million people, including 81,200 millionaires and 237 centimillionaires, and the professional expatriate class, whose per capita spending is substantially above the global mean, is now serving the spending of 1.1 million people, whose composition has shifted toward the lower income tiers of the demographic that remains. The luxury corridor of the Dubai Mall, the stretch of Cartier and Rolex and Chanel and Louis Vuitton and Hermes that constitutes the premium retail heart of the world's largest mall, was built for the spending of people who are no longer in Dubai in the numbers that were there before February. The sales associates who are hired to serve them are serving a reduced flow of customers whose spending is lower because the customers whose spending was highest have left. The luxury retailers do not close immediately. They have leases. They have brand commitments. They have the specific institutional inertia of multinational retail organizations that close stores through a process of strategic review rather than in response to individual months of underperformance. But the strategic reviews are happening. The lease renewals that are coming due are being renegotiated at rates that reflect the current reality rather than the pre-February projection. Some of them are not being renewed. When a Cartier closes in a mall, not in Dubai specifically, but in any mall anywhere in the world, it does not close quietly. The closing of a Cartier is a signal. It is the signal that the premium customer who justifies a Cartier is not there in sufficient numbers to justify the Cartier's presence. And when that signal goes out to every other premium retailer in the mall, the calculation that keeps them in their space becomes more expensive to maintain.